What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Saturday, April 24th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 6-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. I like John Wall from the Houston Rockets playing the Denver Nuggets, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and although they've been pretty good versus opposing point guards, John Wall has averaged 36.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 32% usage rate. He scored 55, 31, and 27 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 39, 29, and 30 minutes. He's projected at 36.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's just about 5 times value. He's $7,400 FanDuel salary, and he's the same price on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226 points scored in this game. Now, my only word of caution here is that it is a back-to-back, and he did play 39 minutes last game, or played 39 minutes yesterday. So I'm expecting around 30 minutes here. He can definitely hit value, and he's got a huge ceiling. So I like John Wall here versus the Denver Nuggets. Okay, another point guard that I like is Ricky Rubio from the Minnesota Timberwolves playing the Utah Jazz, who have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing point guards. But Ricky Rubio has averaged 24.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 26 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. He scored 27, 27, and 19 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 28, 30, and 23 minutes. He's projected at 25.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's just about 5 times value. He's $5,100 FanDuel salary, and he's $300 less on DraftKings. He scored 25, 66, 32, 45, and 34 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Jazz. So excellent player versus team history. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 233.5 points scored in this game. So I like Ricky Rubio here versus the Utah Jazz. Okay guys, it's time to announce the winner of our $100 weekly PayPal giveaway. And the winner is Joseph Walton. Joseph Walton, congratulations. You are the winner of this week's $100 PayPal giveaway. Please reply to our comment to collect your prize. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Jordan Clarkson from the Utah Jazz playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have the absolute worst defense overall, and they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Jordan Clarkson has averaged 26.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 26 minutes per game with a 29% usage rate. But he scored 29, 28, and 40 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 28, 31, and 46 minutes. He's projected at 30.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. He's $5,900 FanDuel salary, and he's $600 more on DraftKings. He scored 27, 7, 28, 28, and 46 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Timberwolves, And we know Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 233.5 points scored in this game. Fantastic matchup. So I like Jordan Clarkson here versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. And another shooting guard I like is Tim Hardaway Jr. from the Dallas Mavericks playing the LA Lakers, who have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing shooting guards. But Tim Hardaway Jr. has averaged 23 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 28 minutes per game with a 23% usage rate. He scored 18, 18, and 13 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 27, 25, and 24 minutes. He's projected at 21.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's only $4,100 FanDuel salary, and he's $100 more on DraftKings. He scored 18, 18, and 34 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Lakers. So this is somewhat of a risky play here, but I like this value play because he's got that 35 fantasy point upside. He hasn't flashed it in a little while, but I think he's due for a big game. So I like Tim Hardaway Jr. here versus the LA Lakers. So another value play at the shooting guard position, I like PJ Dozier from the Denver Nuggets playing the Houston Rockets, who have the 3rd worst defense overall, and they give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. PJ Dozier, he scored 27, 23, and 24 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 29, 25, and 37 minutes. So his minutes per game are way up, so is his production. He's projected at 19.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.1 times value. He's $3,900 FanDuel salary and $200 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 226 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup, so I like PJ Dozier here versus the Houston Rockets. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Brandon Ingram from the New Orleans Pelicans playing the San Antonio Spurs, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and although they've been good versus opposing small forwards, Brandon Ingram has averaged 39.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 35 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He scored 40, 37, and 30 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 29, 31, and 39 minutes. He's projected at 39.9 fantasy points here tonight. That's just about 5 times value. He's $8,200 FanDuel salary and $600 more on DraftKings. He scored 40, 50, 33, and 30 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Spurs. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 228.5 points scored in this game. So I like Brandon Ingram here versus the San Antonio Spurs. Okay, another small forward that I like is Josh Richardson from the Dallas Mavericks playing the LA Lakers, who have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing small forwards. But Josh Richardson has averaged 23.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with an 18% usage rate. He scored 22, 21, and 9 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 30, 28, and 27 minutes. He's projected at 22.2 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score you 25 fantasy points or more, get you 5 times value or more. He's $4,600 FanDuel salary and $400 more on DraftKings. So he scored 22, 28, and 24 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Lakers. So I like Josh Richardson here versus the LA Lakers. Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, Just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? I like Aaron Gordon from the Denver Nuggets playing the Houston Rockets, who have the third worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing power forwards. Aaron Gordon has averaged 28.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. He scored 28, and 17 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 27, 29, and 21 minutes. He's projected at 26.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. He's 5,100 FanDuel salary and 400 more on DraftKings. He scored 15, 48, 33, and 37 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Rockets. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 226 points scored in this game, so I like Aaron Gordon here versus the Houston Rockets. Another power forward that I like, I'm going to give you a value play here. I like Lauri Markkanen from the Chicago Bulls playing the Miami Heat, who have a good defense overall. They've been good versus opposing power forwards, but Lauri Markkanen has averaged 23.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 27 minutes per game with a 21% usage rate. He scored 19, 20, and 19 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 26, 21, and 19 minutes. He's projected at 21.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.5 times value. He's 3,900 FanDuel salary and 200 more on DraftKings. He scored 28, 35, 18, 34, and 38 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Heat. Vegas thinks there's going to be 210 points scored in this game. I think he makes a great value play on both sides, so I like Lauri Markkanen here versus the Miami Heat. Okay, let's take a look at the center position. Once again, I like Andre Drummond from the LA Lakers playing the Dallas Mavericks, who have a good defense overall, and they give up the 13th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Andre Drummond has averaged 39.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 28 minutes per game with a 30% usage rate. He scored 50, 28, and 48 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 30, 28, and 30 minutes. He's projected at 40.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.7 times value. He's 7,100 FanDuel salary, and he's 400 more on DraftKings. He scored 50, 53, 52, 49, and 53 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Mavericks. So fantastic player versus team history here. Vegas thinks there's going to be 216.5 points scored in this game, so I like Andre Drummond here versus the Dallas Mavericks. Another center I like is Mason Plumlee from the Detroit Pistons playing the Indiana Pacers, who have the 6th worst defense overall, and they give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Mason Plumlee has averaged 29.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 27 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. He scored 41 fantasy points in his last game, playing 32 minutes. He's projected at 28.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.4 times value. He's 5,200 FanDuel salary and 300 less on DraftKings. He scored 30, 20, and 27 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Pacers. He scored 34 fantasy points in his last game versus the Pacers. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 222.5 points scored in this game. Fantastic matchup. I really like this play, so I like Mason Plumlee here versus the Indiana Pacers. If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.